Most business owners I work with had no idea how to actually use their content to grow their business YouTube channel before we started working together. They were just blindly copying their competitors, they were posting when they felt like it, and they were hoping that something would stick. I run a content agency in Dubai, and we scaled an info product from 15 to 160,000 subscribers in just 6 months. We scaled another channel from 0 to 7,000 in a month and helped them get a $100,000 launch day. We've also helped multiple clients turn their YouTube into a revenue-generating machine. So here are content lessons I've learned from doing this full time and getting these results. Let's go for a drive. So the first lesson I've learned is that YouTube and Instagram are two completely different platforms. A lot of people that come to me when they want to start working together, they are posting on Instagram and they maybe have some beginnings on YouTube. They treat Instagram and YouTube as if they were the same, which they're really not. Instagram is mainly built for top of funnel, getting the first viewers in, and YouTube is built specifically to help you convert those clicks that you've gotten from Instagram into actual revenue by building trust and connecting with your audience long term, and for them to just make sure that you are in fact the right person, that you can educate them on the topic that they're researching. And if you are treating these platforms as if they would be the same, then that means you're effectively losing the results on both of the platforms. You need both of them to do their job cohesively so you can get people in and then you can convert them with YouTube. And this leads me into the second thing that most people get wrong, which is that the best performing content that you will make for your business will feel like the most boring content to make. Most of the clients that I work with, they want to push for like cinematic, expensive looking, B-roll heavy kind of videos, but the highest converting videos that we've ever done for our clients are simple, direct, founder to camera, speaking and giving lessons. So in this case, a 12 to 15 minute explainer video about the topic that the viewer is searching for is going to be a lot more effective for actually converting these viewers than, let's say, a trailer or a cinematic masterpiece, but that doesn't really help the viewer with anything. And at the end of the day, if you're building this nice cinematic stuff, it's mainly for you rather than the actual audience, because they just care about the value that you're able to provide. And of course, entertainment is value as well, but ultimately for a business sale, they need the business value rather than the entertainment value. Which leads me to one of the most important lessons of this video, which is that business owners often usually have the opposite problem of what they think that they actually have. So for example, maybe someone's told you that you need to make the most amount of views to actually get paid off of social media, but in reality, the content doesn't really need to reach this massive amount of millions of viewers. A couple of thousand of high qualified viewers that actually convert, which is the metric that you should be aiming for. Rather than views, you should be looking at conversions, whether this content that we're posting is actually getting you the results into the house. So for example, the leads, booked calls, actual numbers. Then you can tell whether that content is actually good or not, because views in this business niche doesn't really dictate how much money the business will actually be making from YouTube. And I've seen, and we've also made a couple of videos that get like 50 to 100,000 views, but they got 0 leads. Then we realized that that was actually not the metric that we were supposed to going for. And then we made a few videos, for example, that got like 2,000-3,000 views, but they got 3 booked calls. So that's ultimately what we're looking for nowadays. And that's in reality what helped the business more than the videos that hit 50, 100,000 views. So before you pay for services to get even more reach or like paid ads and stuff like that, fix the actual content so it converts and then add fuel to that fire. And this really happens because of a deeper misunderstanding about what the content is and what it's supposed to be doing. All that videos really are is just persuasion in the moment, so you don't have to persuade people later, for example, when you're doing a sales call with them. You want to be thinking of content as that trust, that proof of concept that you know what you're talking about, that the viewer believes that you can educate them well enough and that you are the right person to buy from, so that later, and when the sales call does happen, these objections do not come up. And this is why I'm so bullish on YouTube as well, because even Google has this 7-11-4 rule where they mention that the viewer needs to spend 7 hours interacting with your content on 11 different touch points over 4 different channels, which if you compare Instagram to YouTube, 7 hours of content on Instagram is like so many reels. That's like you need hundreds of reels to actually get to that number. But let's say with YouTube, you make 20-minute YouTube videos. Let's say the average view duration is from 6 to 8 minutes. If you make 15 to 20 of those, the viewer actually has a genuine path to those 7 hours, which are needed for them to actually convert into a high ticket offer. Now sure, yes, for low ticket offers, it's a bit different. Like you don't need that much amount of view time. But for high ticket, especially, the trust that you get from viewers spending so much time with you is what's really gonna get the sale eventually. And this is why YouTube is the only platform that actually compounds trust fast enough to close these high-ticket sales. That content is actually a lot more expensive than a lot of business owners realize that it is, because what you're really wasting is not your time that you put into YouTube videos, for example. It's actually on the back end when you end up doing these sales calls and the trust isn't built. That's when you really waste the time and the effort of explaining why you're the right person, why this product is good, what are the student results. But if the viewer or the person that you're selling to could have just looked at the YouTube videos, they would have already came prepared. And then it's a lot more of a simple sale. You get a lot less objections because the viewer is already pre-qualified. There's not much for them to ask, rather than just whether this program is the right fit for them. So yeah, you almost have to think of every single piece of content as a pre-sales asset, because the prospects always end up checking your social media, your Instagrams, your YouTubes, before they hop on a sales call. And if that content that you've posted there is confusing, or it doesn't align, or it doesn't really give them trust that you're the right person to learn from, then they will just have a lot of objections and it will be a tough time selling them properly. So now that we've covered how do you actually think about your content, let's get into what kind of content you should be making. And the biggest thing that I see here is business owners that build content around their product, for example, when in reality, the only thing that the viewer actually cares about is whether this video helps them solve their problem. And I see a lot of founders in the beginning of the videos, they speak like 30 seconds to a minute about themselves, about their product, but that's when the viewer is actually the most interested if this video is the right match for what the problem is that they're looking to solve. But if you spend the first 30 seconds to a minute talking about yourself or your product, the viewers will just leave. And those 30 to 60 seconds are the most important part, because that's where YouTube actually decides whether this video is good to push or not. Because the real thing that you should be doing in your videos, especially in the beginning, in the hook, is call out the ICP directly and call out the problem that they are facing, and give them actual hope that the video that they're going to end up watching for 15-20 minutes is gonna give them the solution to this problem that they have. And just think about how you watch the videos yourself. When you have a problem that you want to solve, you look for a specific video that is the most accurate to the problem that you have, rather than watching someone that you might trust but that video doesn't really align with what you're looking for. And that's how viewers are all the time. So if the content that you're making for your business is either too broad or it doesn't really align with their interests, they're just not going to be ending up watching that video. And if you're wondering what problems you should actually be solving and talking about in your YouTube videos, the clearest way that I've found to actually come up with ideas for that is look at the sales calls that you had. If you run also a coaching offer, for example, with group coaching or one-on-one, you also look at what questions do people ask you in these mentorship calls. Because the questions that you get as objections on sales calls, the questions that you get asked to you directly, is what most viewers are actually struggling with. So if you have that data, transcribe every single call that you have had and summarize all the questions that you get asked, and then you can actually go through it one by one, see on YouTube whether these make sense to make videos about. And most of the time what you will find is that they actually are the perfect video ideas. And the first thing that I do with a lot of my clients is specifically ask for their sales calls and their mentorship calls, because that gives me a lot more context about their actual ICP and their actual problems, rather than a lot of just researching on internet. So yeah, when you end up building this list of questions and you verify the ideas on YouTube, seeing how much traction there actually is to this topic, then there is a pretty straightforward way to getting at least a month to 2 months of content just out of that alone. Which leads me to a lesson that most entrepreneurs that I talk to completely miss, which is that the content calendar that you have should be aligned with your sales calendar. Now, what do I mean by this is that, let's imagine in May you have a launch for a digital product that you have been building for months now. That means that March and April should be these months where you prime your audience and get them ready for the sales pitch, rather than just posting random videos. So before the launch is close, you can afford to post a bit more top of funnel videos to actually get more traffic in on YouTube. But when you're getting close to that launch, think of posting middle of funnel videos that build trust, that build credibility with your viewers, and bottom of funnel videos that actually convince them 100% that you are the right person that they should be learning from. And by doing so, when the launch date actually comes, your content will have pre-warmed the audience, they will be pre-sold, and the launch is a lot more simpler of a process because you do not need to be doing the selling then again and again. The viewer will already be there and looking to buy what you have to offer them. And now here's a lesson that might sound counterintuitive, but it's actually one of the highest leverage things that you can do with your content, which is to disqualify a bad customer. Because a lot of entrepreneurs that I speak to, they specifically want to cast this wide net to attract as much of an audience as possible. But in reality, what that does, it dilutes the quality of the actual viewer that will be ending up there to buy. Because you hear this saying a lot, riches are in the niches. And ultimately what that means in the context of YouTube is that if you go very specific, very intentional with the video idea that you're making and who that video idea is for, then the effect of you getting these viewers into your doorstep will be a lot more higher than if you cast a wide, let's say, for example, you do 7 books that changed my life kind of a video. The viewer pool on that kind of video is so large in comparison to, let's say, how do you actually build a personal brand, or how do you actually make money with XYZ? Like how do you actually start with XYZ business model? These kind of videos disqualify the people that are not interested in them, and they reinforce the viewer that is actually the right person, that they should be watching your videos. If you're selling, let's say, a $5,000 to $10,000 offer, you do not want 10,000 people that are going to be there, but they are not ready to buy. You would much rather have 20 people that are convinced that you are the right person to buy from and that you have what will solve their problem, because those are the people that are most likely going to be buying from you. So yes, videos that scare off the wrong audience are the ones that actually attract the right audience. Coming into the last few lessons, which are about living with the content long term, and one important concept that I see here is when people talk about consistency, they always say, oh, consistency over everything. But consistency really shouldn't be about the posting frequency. Of course, yes, posting frequency is important. It is very important that you get videos out on a weekly basis, for example, at the bare minimum. But what I see that consistency really is about, it's about the tone of your brand and how you present information and how you connect with your viewers. Because posting less but with the same tone, let's say you post 1 weekly video with the same tone, with the same vibe, with the same intentions, aiming at the same ICP, that will convert better than posting a lot of these random videos that do not have the right tone or the right ICP or anything like that, but having a more consistent schedule, so maybe posting 2 times a week. Yes, more videos is better, but only if those videos are actually built correctly. Because viewers ultimately trust consistency of your character more than they trust the consistency of your posting schedule. So if you don't end up posting daily or 2 times a week, just post weekly with the consistent tone, and that will end up building the trust. And make every video sound like you are the same person that's solving different problems for your same ideal customer. And the simplest way to test if the content that you're posting is actually working, and I cannot emphasize this fact enough, but it's to look at the back-end results rather than the vanity metrics like the video views, like the likes, like the comments, stuff like that. It's nice to have, but it's not a real metric that you should be worrying about if your primary focus is to get sales from your YouTube channel. The only thing that really signals whether the video is working or not is whether the actual booked call rate goes up, whether the close rate goes up, whether you get more customers, more inbound leads. That is how you actually can tell on the back end whether the videos that you're posting and putting all this hard effort into, are they actually giving you some sort of result? So for example, if you end up posting 10 videos, but you get no booked calls, no leads, no sales, that is not a posting problem. That is a misalignment with the content that you are making, and the viewer is either not finding enough value, they're either feeling like you're not speaking to them, or that you might not be the right person to actually end up buying from. And how you go about this is to actually fix the message and fix the intention. Now let me get some gas and I'll continue with this. One of the best ways I've found to actually aligning the message that you have with your content is to be very clear on who you are targeting to. And of course, if you're selling a digital product online and you have a high ticket offer that's proven to work, you already have a very good understanding of who your ICP is, what kind of problems they have, how they like to be talked to and stuff like that. But if you don't, this kind of clarity is what's actually going to help you figure out the tone and the message that you should be sending in your content for the viewer to actually convert.
Any bill?
No, all good. Perfect, thank you very much. All right, let's keep going. And this last lesson is the most important for anyone that's actually building a personal brand around their business, and that is to stop sounding like an expert and start sounding like an actual founder that's going through it and documenting the journey as well. And it's not because sounding like an expert is necessarily wrong, but that's because everyone else is doing the same thing, and you don't really want to be blending into the crowd of experts online. Like, that's not the whole point of how you build a strong and different personal brand from everyone else. But the moment you actually sound like yourself, like you're thinking in real time, that's when you actually become unique. And your personality is the only moat that AI, for example, cannot replace. Yes, expertise, yes, educating people is important. If you're selling high ticket, the whole point is that viewers trust you enough, that they trust you enough to buy, rather than the information, because ultimately, yes, information is available everywhere. AI will be able to solve any problem that the viewer might be having on a technical side, but it will never be as good as you at actually connecting with the viewer and actually understanding their situation and helping them solve their specific problems. And the viewer knows that. That's why you see a lot of people online tell about, like, hey, yes, you can get all the information in the courses on YouTube or on Google. And yes, they're right, because all that information is widely available. But what people are actually paying for nowadays is the implementation of said information. And for people to be confident that you are going to be the one that's going to be helping them implement that information, actually succeed, they need to also like you and your personality and your humor and the way you talk and your quirks, So there's no real reason to actually be hiding those and appear as this polished person online. Like, if you take some breaths, for example, when you talk, when you stutter a little bit, when you don't look as perfect as you would like for yourself to look like, all that really does is just hold yourself back rather than actually hurt with the conversion, because these micro things that make us human is what actually helps viewers connect with you directly. So that's why, for example, the biggest personal brands that are led by founders, for example, like Daniel Dalen or Iman Gadzhi, like, they're very authentic. They're not a very overly polished version of themselves where people think that, oh, this person is just perfect. Like, they show the downs and the ups and the lessons and the hard times and stuff like that. So if you want to build this long term to actually make a personal brand where people are dying to be your fans and your buyers, then you really need to be looking at it from a connections side as well. So those are the lessons. And if there's one thing that you take away from all of this video, make it this: the content is no longer an optional thing that would be a nice to have. It actually is required, and it will decide whether the next 10 sales calls that you have are going to be the same hassle, complicated sales calls, or will they be with 10 people that are actually ready to buy and fully convinced to buy from you. And the most business owners are still posting content randomly and still hoping that something sticks, but the ones that are actually winning are treating content like almost a side business with proper decision making, not just a creative hobby. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.